Let's speak to Ron Delnevo, Chair at the Payments Choice Alliance. We've spoken on this before, Ron. Good afternoon to you. I'm sure since we last spoke, more banks have probably closed. This is a direction of travel. What do you, before we get into it in a little more detail, what do you make of the FCA's ruling that before a bank can close, they've got to satisfy everybody that there is still access to cash?
Well, it's far too little too late. You mentioned, Ian, quite rightly, we've lost thousands of bank branches. We've actually lost 2 a day since 2015. So, frankly, the horse is bolted and the bank branches are closed. So this isn't enough, not nearly enough.
Yeah. Fundamentally, what's the problem with losing cash? You know, we are told that it's safer to not have cash. Your money is in a far more secure place when it's on a card. It makes things much more convenient. It can avoid fraud, although there is also another whole fraud issue around the contactless thing as well. What are the fundamental reasons to want to protect cash, Ron?
Well, just to say the most common street crime in London is smartphone theft. Every 10 minutes, a smartphone is stolen, and smartphone is how you use Apple Pay and Google Pay. So let's not stress the security advantages of non-cash. There are lots of very poor security issues connected with non-cash. The bottom line is that we're arguing that Apple Pay is fine, cards are fine, and so on, but we want the public to have choice. And we didn't decide this for ourselves. We actually surveyed the public through YouGov, and we found only 3% of people strongly wanted a cashless society, and 71%, which equates to 40 million adults, want a law put in place that gives them the right to spend their cash when and where they choose. So the public don't want cashless. They want choice. Yes, they want to use digital. Yes, they want to use cards, but they also want to use cash on occasion. And all that's what we're seeking to protect.
What do you sense are the reasons why, then, cash is disappearing at an alarming rate?
Well, one of the reasons is because bank branches and ATMs have disappeared at an alarming rate. The ATMs that are left, and we've lost 30% in the last few years, are still delivering 70% of the cash that was issued by the larger ATM estate. So people are still taking a lot of money out of ATMs. You know, for every man, woman and child in the UK, there's £1,500 of cash in circulation. So the death of cash is very much exaggerated. But of course, the public are having their hands forced here. You mentioned yourself, it'll be okay if there's an ATM a mile away in a petrol station, yes, even if there isn't one in the community centre. Well, that isn't okay. They're making cash what experts would call a destination purchase. You have to go and find it rather than being convenient, and they're doing that because they don't want people to use cash. It's as simple as that.
But is my contention, or I suppose my question really, Ron, because I am split on this, as I've said before, is that all of the arguments about retaining cash seem to be romantic ones, if that makes sense, as distinct from, you know, genuine, pressing, or crucial points. We like the idea, we can see some levels of convenience, it might be good for housekeeping, etc., but they're not real arguments in the grander scale.
Well, you and I are both probably romantics anyway, Ian, but the bottom line is it wasn't romanticism last week when the entire IT structure collapsed, and you couldn't use cards or ticket machines. So basically, cash was all that people had to rely on. And some of the so-called experts said, oh, that will never happen again. Well, that was odd, because Sainsbury's and Tesco weren't able to accept card payments back in March. So the truth is, these systems are not secure, and we need a fallback at the very least. And then there's the whole issue of choice. If there was no choice, Visa and MasterCard and the banks would make even more money because it would put their prices up for card use and for payment terminal use. So cash forces them to be more competitive. Without cash, where's the pressure for competition in payments?
But no, and I get all of that, but is it an argument that is ultimately lost and was maybe lost a few years ago now?
Well, lost on whom? Not the public, because I've just told you 40 million adults want the right to use cash. This is being lost in the media, and I'm not talking about your show, because the Visa and MasterCard combo working with the banks spend billions of dollars every year trying to convince us that we're dinosaurs if we use cash. We're not dinosaurs, we're just people who want to exercise choice. I've been on programs throughout the UK, but also in Canada recently, and the Canadian public feel exactly the same way. They feel like they're having cashless imposed to them all around the world. I was talking to Australians recently. The Australians feel the same. This is a picture where banks and card schemes are deciding for us. This is the democracy. The voters have the choice, not big businesses trying to swell their already fat profits.
There it is. Listen, Ron, great to have a chat on this yet again. We will speak again. Ron Delnevo, who's from the Payment Choice Alliance.